When the Soul Reviews Your Life, The Questions You May Face Beyond This World by David Russo. Hello, this is David Russo. You will also hear from me at another point in this audiobook. Right now, I'm outside reading this to you, and I'm happy to be here with you. Enjoy. What questions might the soul ask? What if, when this life is over, the questions that matter most are completely different from the questions we spend so much of our lives trying to answer? Perhaps no one asks how much money you accumulated, how impressive your title was, how many people knew your name, or whether you achieved everything you once imagined. Instead, imagine being asked, did you love? Did you grow? Did you forgive? Did you help? Did you become more fully yourself? Did you recognize the moments that mattered while you were living them? No one can say with certainty whether a soul reviews its earthly life after death, but the possibility raises an extraordinary question for the living. If you knew that one day you would see your entire life with perfect clarity, would you live differently today? Introduction. The inner review we all carry. Every human being experiences moments of reflection. Sometimes they arrive during major transitions, after the loss of someone we love, during a quiet night when the distractions disappear, or simply when we realize how quickly time is passing. We look backward and ask ourselves questions that no one else can answer for us. Did I live the life I wanted to live? Did my choices matter? Did I treat people well? Did I become the person I was capable of becoming? In a sense, we do not have to wait until the end of life for a life review. Pieces of it are happening within us already. Across religions, spiritual traditions, philosophies, and personal accounts, there are different ideas about what may happen after death. Some include judgment, others reincarnation, others reunion with a divine source, and some describe a review or expanded understanding of the life just completed. We cannot establish with certainty exactly what awaits consciousness beyond death. So rather than treating the soul review as a prediction, we can use it as a spiritual thought experiment. Imagine seeing your life without ego, excuses, competition, or social expectations. What would suddenly look important? What would look surprisingly unimportant? And what questions might your own soul ask you? Chapter 1. The Moment of Reflection. Imagine reaching a point beyond ordinary life where there is nowhere to rush, nothing left to prove, and no image left to maintain. Your accomplishments, disappointments, relationships, arguments, victories, fears, kindness, and missed opportunities are all part of a completed story. Now imagine being able to see that story as a whole, not simply as a collection of memories, but as an interconnected journey in which one choice led to another and one encounter influenced countless others. Such a review would require a kind of honesty that can be difficult during life. Human beings are remarkably skilled at explaining themselves to themselves. We justify actions, minimize mistakes, exaggerate accomplishments, blame circumstances, and sometimes rewrite our memories so we can live more comfortably with them. But what if the soul had no need to protect an ego? Perhaps the review would not be cruel. Perhaps it would simply be clear. We would see what happened, why we did what we did, what resulted from it, and what might have done differently. And perhaps the central question would not be, what did you accomplish? It might be, who did you become? Achievements can disappear. Possessions change hands. Titles are eventually given to someone else. Even reputations fade with time. But if life develops something within consciousness, wisdom, compassion, courage, understanding, love, then perhaps those qualities tell a deeper story than anything we accumulated along the way. Chapter 2. Seeing life through another perspective. One of the most fascinating possibilities associated with the idea of a life review is that we might somehow understand our actions from perspectives beyond our own. During ordinary life, we experience events primarily from inside ourselves. We know what we intended, what we were feeling, and why we reacted the way we did. But we rarely know completely what another person experienced because of us. Imagine rediscovering a conversation you barely remembered. You said something encouraging to someone who was struggling, walked away, and forgot about it. But perhaps that person remembered your words for years. Maybe you restored confidence at precisely the moment they needed it. Something that occupied 30 seconds of your life could have become an important turning point in theirs. How differently would you evaluate your life if you could see all those invisible ripples? The opposite possibility deserves reflection too. A sarcastic remark, an unnecessary humiliation, a moment of impatience, or an act of selfishness might have affected someone more deeply than we realized. This does not mean we should live terrified of every imperfect interaction. It means our lives overlap. We are constantly entering other people's stories, sometimes briefly and sometimes for decades. If the soul sees beyond the boundaries of the individual self, perhaps one of its greatest discoveries is just how interconnected a human life really was. Chapter 3. The weight of our intentions. Outcomes matter, but outcomes do not always reveal the entire meaning of an action. Two people can perform almost identical acts for completely different reasons. Someone may give generously because they genuinely want to help, while someone else may give because they want admiration from the outside. The behavior can look the same. Internally, however, two very different stories are unfolding. This raises an intriguing question for the soul review. Would intention matter more than appearance? Perhaps we would see not only what we did, but what was moving within us when we did it. Were we motivated by compassion or fear, love or control, generosity or recognition? Were we attempting to help even when our attempt failed? Were we trying to understand or merely trying to win? Yet, intention cannot become an excuse for everything. We can mean well and still hurt someone. Part of growth is learning to recognize both intention and impact. Perhaps a deeper review would allow us to hold both truths simultaneously. I understand why I made that choice, and now I can also understand what that choice created. That kind of awareness is more useful than simple condemnation because it transforms mistakes into understanding. Chapter 4. The relationships we created. If you removed possessions, job titles, awards, and status from the story of your life, what would remain? For most people, much of what remains would be relationships. Parents, children, partners, friends, co-workers, teachers, strangers, and people who appeared only briefly all become part of the human experience. Some relationships bring extraordinary love. Others challenge us, frustrate us, disappoint us, or teach us through difficulty. Perhaps the soul would ask questions we rarely put on our daily schedules. Who did you love? Who needed you? Who stood beside you? Whom did you take for granted? Did the people you loved know that you loved them? These questions can feel more significant when we remember that every relationship is temporary in its earthly form. Even lifelong relationships eventually reach a final conversation. although we rarely know which conversation will be the last. People can sometimes feel like interruptions when we are busy pursuing our goals. Someone calls while we are working. A child wants our attention. A friend needs to talk. A stranger slows us down. Yet perhaps relationships are not interruptions in the journey. Perhaps they are a major part of the journey itself. A soul looking backward might discover that some of the moments it once considered distractions were actually among the most meaningful moments of all. Chapter 5. The Lessons Hidden Inside Pain. No honest review of a human life could ignore suffering. Every person encounters some combination of disappointment, rejection, grief, uncertainty, failure, loneliness, change, and loss. When we are inside those experiences, we naturally want them to end. Pain rarely feels like a lesson while it is happening. It simply feels painful. But distance can change our understanding. Years later, we sometimes recognize that a difficult experience redirected us, strengthened us, awakened compassion, exposed something we needed to change, or taught us what another person might be going through. This does not mean every tragedy happens for a predetermined spiritual reason, nor does it mean suffering should be romanticized. Some experiences are simply devastating. Yet human beings possess a remarkable ability to create wisdom even from circumstances they never would have chosen. Perhaps the soul review would show us not merely what hurt, but what we did with what hurt. Did pain make us permanently harder or eventually more compassionate? Did disappointment convince us to stop living, or did we discover another direction? The wound itself may not have been the lesson. The lesson may have emerged from how we responded to the wound. Chapter 6. The Dreams We Ignored. Some regrets come from what we did. Others come from what we never attempted. Somewhere inside many people are ideas, dreams, conversations, journeys, creative projects, relationships, or possibilities that continually whisper, someday. Someday I will try it. Someday I will begin. Someday I will say what I really feel. Someday I will become the person I imagine myself becoming. Fear is often hidden underneath that word. We fear failure, embarrassment, rejection, uncertainty, financial loss, criticism, or discovering that we are not as capable as we hoped. Avoiding the attempt protects us temporarily from those possibilities, but it creates another possibility, reaching a later point in life and wondering what might have happened if we tried. Perhaps the soul would not condemn us for dreams that failed. Failure is part of being human. The deeper question might be whether fear repeatedly prevented us from participating fully in our own lives. What did you come here wanting to explore? What ability remained unused? What part of yourself did you keep waiting for permission to become? Sometimes the unfinished business of a life may not be what went wrong. It may be what never got the chance to begin. Chapter 7. The Moments That Truly Mattered. When people imagine an important life, they often picture important events, graduations, weddings, promotions, achievements, births, awards, major purchases, and extraordinary experiences. These events certainly matter. Yet, when we look backward, some of our most treasured memories are surprisingly ordinary. Perhaps it was sitting at a kitchen table talking with someone you loved. Maybe it was laughing so hard with a friend that you could barely speak. Maybe someone hugged you when you desperately needed it. Perhaps you helped a stranger without expecting anything in return. These moments rarely announce themselves by saying, "Pay attention." You will remember this. They arrive disguised as ordinary life. A soul review might completely rearrange our hierarchy of importance. The day we considered insignificant may glow with meaning because of one act of kindness. The year we considered unsuccessful may contain a relationship that changed us forever. Perhaps life is not measured only by its major milestones. Perhaps it is also measured by how awake we were for the small moments occurring between them. Chapter 8. The Illusions We Chased. The world offers countless ways to measure ourselves: money, recognition, appearance, followers, status, possessions, productivity, titles, approval. None of these things is automatically wrong. Money can provide freedom and security. Achievement can express talent and discipline. Recognition can create opportunities. The problem begins when external measurements become substitutes for inner meaning. Imagine reviewing decades spent pursuing something you eventually discovered could never provide what you expected from it. Perhaps you believed a certain amount of money would finally make you feel worthy. Perhaps you needed another person's approval to feel valuable. Perhaps you continually compared yourself with people who seemed further ahead. Every achievement brought temporary satisfaction before the finish line moved again. Chapter 9. Forgiveness and Self-Understanding. A complete life review would inevitably contain mistakes. There would be words we wish we could retrieve, decisions we would change, opportunities we mishandled, people we misunderstood, and moments when we were not the person we later learned to become. If we saw everything at once, the temptation might be to judge ourselves harshly. But perhaps expanded understanding would produce something different. Imagine seeing your younger self along with everything that person knew, feared, believed, and had experienced up to that moment. You might still recognize that certain choices were wrong, but you might finally understand why you made them. Understanding does not erase responsibility. It allows responsibility to become wisdom rather than permanent self-punishment. Forgiveness may therefore be one of the deepest questions in a soul review. Can you forgive others without pretending they never hurt you? Can you forgive yourself without pretending your mistakes never mattered? Forgiveness does not have to rewrite history. It can simply stop history from controlling every chapter that follows. Perhaps the soul does not demand perfection from a human lifetime. Perhaps it asks whether we became more conscious through our imperfections. Chapter 10. Living as if the review begins today. The greatest value of imagining a soul review is not discovering what happens after death. We may not know that with certainty while we are alive. Its greatest value is discovering what the idea can teach us before death. We can conduct pieces of the review now. Ask yourself, if I watched today again from beginning to end, what would I notice? Did I appreciate the people around me? Did I spend my attention on things that deserved it? Did I act from fear when I wanted to act from courage? Did I say something kind when I had the opportunity? Did I move even slightly toward something meaningful? These questions transform the soul review from an event beyond this world into a practice within this one. And this is where the idea becomes empowering rather than frightening. The story is unfinished. You cannot rewrite yesterday, but you are still participating in what happens next. You can make the phone call. You can apologize. You can begin the project. You can express gratitude. You can forgive. You can reconsider what you have placed on a pedestal. You can notice the ordinary moment before it becomes a memory. If there is ever a final review, perhaps one of the greatest things we could discover is that somewhere along the way, we became conscious enough to begin reviewing and changing our lives while we still had time. Hello, this is David Russo. I think a life review would have something to teach us, but I also think it would be nice if, while we're still alive, we could review our own lives. And in a way, maybe we already can. The closest thing we have to a life review right now may be our memories, the pictures and videos we've collected, and even the memories of the people who have known us. Each one gives us another little piece of our own story. Of course, none of those can show us everything, but they can help us look at where we've been, where we are now, and where we are going, and make course corrections while we still have the opportunity. We don't necessarily have to wait until the end of life to look back and learn from it. And if there really is a life review beyond this world, I think that could be very interesting. Maybe by reviewing our lives now, we can become more aware of the life we're still creating. Conclusion: writing a life worth remembering. Perhaps there is a moment beyond this world when the soul looks back. Perhaps consciousness sees the people it encountered, the choices it made, the pain it endured, the love it gave, the opportunities it accepted, and the possibilities it left unexplored. Or perhaps the reality beyond death is entirely different from anything we can currently imagine. We do not have to settle that mystery for the idea of a life review to have value. The questions themselves can teach us something now. If such a review exists, perhaps the greatest questions would be surprisingly simple. How deeply did you love? How honestly did you live? What did you learn? Whom did you help? Did you forgive? Did you allow yourself to grow? Did you recognize your own value? Did you bring something good into another person's experience? And when life gave you the opportunity to become more fully yourself, did you take it? Perhaps the soul would care less about whether our lives appeared impressive and more about whether we were truly present inside them. And then there is the most important question of all. What will you do with the life that remains? Because whatever happened yesterday, the review is not complete. There are still people you can love, dreams you can attempt, mistakes you can learn from, moments you can appreciate, and parts of yourself you have not yet discovered. If one day your soul does look back upon this extraordinary human journey, perhaps you will realize that the most important chapter was never somewhere in the distant past or future. It was always the chapter you were writing while you were here.